Hey, and welcome to The Office Field Guide. I'm Chris and I'm reviewing every episode of The Office ever. And today, I'm very excited. We're kicking off season 5 with weight loss.
We are all going to die of obesity.
This one was written by Louis Eisenberg and Gene Stupnitsky. Directed by Paul Feig, it first aired on September 25th, 2008, was viewed by a staggering 9.2 million people, and currently has an 8.8 rating on IMDb. Your trivia for today is, what time does Angela Martin go to bed? Okay, new season, new Easter egg. Keep an eye out for the rapping Michael and Holly.
Wicka, 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 what?
We have a lot to talk about. We're gonna get into some odd connections. We're gonna talk about how 9/11 impacted this episode.
I think I never really processed 9/11.
And so much more. All right, so let's swallow this tapeworm.
I understand nothing.
That wasn't a tapeworm.
Weight Loss is an oddly structured episode of The Office. It seems like in normal season premieres, we have one of the characters and a talking head speak to whatever happened during their summer breaks. Which, now that I'm thinking of it, why does the show have summer breaks anyway? But in this case, we watch an hour-long episode broken up into several different segments, detailing their summer of weight loss.
Does anyone want to dance?
But we're gonna start with what I really like to talk about, which is callbacks. Michael's wearing the sumo suit from Beach Games.
It's my sumo suit. I just didn't inflate it all the way.
But I'm gonna stick to my guns here. The moment that suit got wet, he did not have a choice about buying it.
I'm so glad that I bought instead of rented.
But another callback is Angela's love for the little drummer boy.
Is there any way our first dance can be to my favorite song? The Little Drummer Boy.
Quick question, folks. Let's say your significant other asked for your first dance at your wedding to be the Little Drummer Boy. What do you say?
Of course.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great song. I always thought it was bigger than Christmas anyway, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and a fun little one. While Toby's recovering in the Costa Rican hospital, he's watching Entourage in Espanol. And it happens to be on the
Hug it out, bitch. That is what men say to each other after a fight. They hug it out.
And I'm telling you, this is one of those weird things in The Office that might lend a little credence to the Sureverse theory. Okay, let's switch it up from inter-episode connections to weird trivia. And this first one is unconfirmed. But while I still have that clip of Toby in Costa Rica handy,
Eso es, amigo. Genial. Ven aquí, dame un abrazo, perra. Fabuloso.
that's supposedly John Krasinski's voice.
Ven aquí, dame un abrazo, perra. Fabuloso.
It's from an unconfirmed source, but I was able to find that Krasinski is fluent in Spanish, so it very well could be. Anyway, one trivia question I did consider for today's trivia question was, how many total pounds did the Office staff lose during the contest? Well, they started at
2,210 pounds.
and went down to
2,175.
for a grand total of
226 pounds?
Almost, Kevin.
Not almost though, Holly.
35 pounds. And for other trivia things, I found it interesting based on Holly's board that we can still find the remaining Dunder Mifflin branches are Scranton, Nashua, Camden, Utica, Buffalo, Albany, Yonkers, and I guess corporate. Pam's username is Receptionitis. Okay, and the biggest thing that we need to talk about that it has nothing to do with the story is Meredith's face. If you're watching us on Netflix or the DVDs or whatever, and you have no idea why Meredith's face is all messed up for a majority of this episode, I kind of thought it was genius for them to let it go unexplained, kind of like Michael's goatee for at least one of the time hops. There's just no word about it, and it's really awkward. Also kind of a David Brent thing going on there. But we don't get anything about Meredith's face.
Hey, your face is almost back to normal.
If one more kid calls me Hellboy, I swear to God.
So for all of you who are wondering what the story is, here you go.
These guys took me out in their fishing boat. I don't think I caught anything.
Okay, and the other huge thing we have to talk about is this rest stop. We'll obviously get to this moment in the deeper meaning, but there's a lot to appreciate here about what they did to create this. First, as the story goes, Daniel used to travel to visit family in Connecticut, and they'd often stop at an ExxonMobil station about halfway to fill up for snacks and stuff. When the writers wrote up the idea and Daniels read the script, this is the place he pictured in his mind. The problem is, after 9/11, ExxonMobil would no longer allow filming at their stations. And after a lot of back and forth, they ultimately decided to build this thing from the ground up, recreating the rest stop as closely to the original as possible. I tried to find the place, but I wasn't quite able to find it on the maps, but I did find this blog entry on a site called I'm Not a Stalker, in which the writer tried to track down the same thing. She had a little bit more luck than me. She found the exact place. So yeah, I think they did a pretty good job of rebuilding it. I'm not really sure what the copyright laws are here, but from my book, The Office, The Untold Story, you can see the recreation of the site being constructed. I love this book. There's so much good stuff in it. If you're interested in checking it out, the link's in the description. But the construction had to occur in a huge parking lot in Glendale owned by Best Buy. The same giant slab of pavement was also used for Tokyo Drift. So there's that. This is just a facade with the coolers and the fridges being posters. These are just props, and they just had several cars lined up to drive by. And then not to mention, it doesn't rain in LA, so they had a lot of water trucks there just hosing tons of water out into the parking lot. According to Daniels, this shot cost approximately $250,000. That's a lot of work and money spent on a scene that shows the exact opposite sentiment. According to Stupnitsky, they wanted it raining, the cars to be obstructing the view, and the mics to not be working so that they could seal in this idea of realism or this non-Hollywood take on their relationship. All in all, it took them 9 days from start to completion, which is very impressive to me, but I also don't work in that industry. This seems like as good of time as any to go to the deeper meaning.
What does a bean mean?
Someone please explain it to Cap.
Central to the theme of weight loss is weight loss. We get an appearance from Michael Klump,
Fat people are not monsters.
the tapeworm,
It's going to grow up to 3 feet inside of me, and then it eats all my food so that I don't get fat.
the juice diet,
All I have to do is drink maple syrup, lemon juice, cayenne pepper, and water for all 3 meals.
trash bags, Jim losing his chair in a deleted scene, which results in Dwight doing intense karate exercises. Then there's more intense workouts. And more intense workouts.
Are you insane?
Hey. What happened?
There was no client. Dwight drove me to an abandoned warehouse 5 miles away and pushed me out of the car.
And more intense workouts.
Oh, we done good in there, half pint.
While a lot of these things are going on, keeping with that motif of weight loss, we keep coming back to the same well and seeing that nothing's changed. And that's until the real weight of this episode is lifted. And that's the thing that I can tell you I was not expecting from this episode at all. I figured the writers were going to string me along for another season with forced drama culminating to some resolution near the end of the season. But we'll get to the proposal in a minute. Another thing this episode does is juxtapose functional relationships with dysfunctional relationships. And this point in the series, we're full-blown daytime drama with several love triangles: Ryan, Kelly, Daryl, Andy, Angela, and Dwight, Michael, Holly, and Jan, and then just plain old Jim and Pam. Another idea with weight loss I've noticed in this episode is that self-control weighs in on almost every one of these plot lines. We know that Kelly's gonna have a hard time controlling herself around Ryan. We know that Angela's gonna have a hard time controlling herself around Dwight. We know that Michael's primary goal is family, and that Jan seems to be playing off this in some really odd way. But Michael's playing right into it. And Jim's lack of self-control is not shown to be a bad thing, considering how long he did exhibit self-control. And just one other weight loss motif I noticed in this: sometimes when you cut fat, it comes right back.
How's my favorite branch doing?
But I guess you can be mean to it and make it cry.
David, can I just... Let me just tell... He just made the list.
So the message of this one is, I don't really know. Be careful not to do weight loss gimmicks.
I hate dieting. I hate it so much. I hate this worm inside of me.
Is that healthy food?
Nope.
We're trying to win a contest here, Kelly, please.
Honestly, this episode really seems scattered, so I don't really know if there's an overarching message to this one.
Don't ever, for any reason, do anything to anyone, for any reason,
ever, no matter what.
The simplicity of their proposal is awesome though, and it's what I would love to spend more time talking about. I proposed to my wife twice, and that's a really long story for a different time.
That is a long story, but quite well told.
The first time I proposed, I did everything the Hollywood way. I mean, it worked. She said yes and all that. When I ended up proposing the second time, again, long story, I decided I didn't want to outdo myself because it really wasn't about me in the first place. So I ended up taking her on a date to a few places that were meaningful in our relationship. We had a lot of fun. We ate some food, we goofed around. And when the evening was over, I ended up popping the question in my house. It was pretty low key, but it was special. And I had her son, who was 2 at the time, get all dressed up in a tux and walk in with a ring. So I guess I do have a little bit of Andy in me. But when I see elaborate speeches and crazy proposals in movies, I always cringe a little bit. And I think that's why I've always loved this proposal. It just reminds me of the simplicity of the relationship I have with my wife.
There, take those home to your wife.
But anyway, let's rate this thing so I can tell you everything I hate about this episode.
This is the worst.
Okay, I was kidding, kind of, but this episode isn't my favorite. I mean, look, 5 minutes of this episode are up there with some of the best of The Office. The rest is fine. The structure's weird, the deeper meaning. Maybe for the first time in this series, I actually couldn't find a real deeper meaning in this episode. Add to all of this that there isn't a cold opening, and all up, it's just fine. I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5. As soon as this hits the screen when I'm binging the series, I know I'm in for about 40 minutes of pretty decent Office shenanigans, culminating in the proposal. It's not the best, but it's somewhere between great and fine.
And I don't care what any stupid scale says. You guys are all gigantic losers.
But that's just what I think about weight loss. If you want to know my overall feelings about the Jim-Pam relationship, I'd recommend you check out my video on Casino Night. Sometime in the future, I'm gonna do a whole video on their entire relationship, but for now, there's a great summary in that episode, so check that one out. That's pretty much all I have to say about weight loss. Don't forget to leave a comment for the contest that we have, and your emoji for next week's episode, which is business ethics.
Get in there right now or I'm gonna lose it!
I hope you're enjoying this. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.